What's going on, everyone? It's kylecroese. What's going on? Oh, yeah. What's going on, everyone? It's kylecroese, and this is the Everything I Watched segment for October 2022. Before we get started, just want to bring out the podcast. We did the 100th episode, came out recently. Went really well, I think. You can go listen to it if you listen to the podcast, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you get them. And we had a lot of fun making that. I've liked the responses been getting, and can't wait to start the next season. So go listen to it and have fun and enjoy. Let's talk about film. Start of the month, horror month, spooky month, by watching a pretty spooky movie, Blonde. Spooky in a way that it was bad. I've got a lot of thoughts about this movie, which I'll be talking about in a podcast episode that I'll be releasing, because I've got a lot to say here. But bottom line, I didn't like it. Blanket kind of statement. Bottom line, didn't like it. I thought Ana de Armas was fantastic. I thought it was probably her best performance she's ever done. But everything other than that, the filmmaking, how it was made, the structure, the script, the screen, everything. Ugh, no. I'll be talking about that more in depth in a podcast episode, but just know that I was not a fan of this film. Moving on to Halloween Ends, another film that I was not a fan of. This is the third installment, or the final installment, in David Gordon Green and Danny McBride's Halloween trilogy, which retcons all of the Halloweens that come after 1978 and take place in this new kind of timeline where Laurie is trying to track down Michael, or Michael's trying to track down Laurie, and they're going to have their final showdown. It ends. But I really didn't feel like anything ended with this movie, because I didn't like where it went, and I didn't like it, and characters are dumb and stupid, and always have been in this trilogy, to be honest. But everything, all the choices that's made in this movie, I know that people were a fan of what happened and the choices that were made just because of how they didn't expect it or how crazy, but subverting expectations doesn't mean it's good. And look, yes, these things are subjective, but the choices made in this movie with certain characters, I really couldn't get on board with, and I was like, kind of like, why the fuck are we doing this? I think it's a bit too late in the game to be doing this as well in this trilogy, and I didn't like it. Didn't like where it went. But the one thing that I really didn't like was characters that were established in the first two films of this trilogy really didn't feel like the characters that they were in those movies, and they just felt like completely different characters in this film. Whereas, like, you know, the characters I feel like they got stupider and stupider as the films went on. Whereas I enjoyed the 2018 one. I wouldn't say it's amazing, but I didn't say I hate it. I didn't think I hated it. There are some lines in certain parts of the script that I didn't really like, but other than that, I thought the filmmaking was really good. I thought the way David Gordon Green handled the movie and how Michael came across, I thought was good. Everything else, other than other things surrounding that and to do with that movie, didn't really enjoy. And those are the feelings that really carry over to these next two films. And this one is just even worse than Kills. I thought Kills was like a bit of a joke, to be honest, and didn't really like it. I guess it really depends on the way that you want your Michael to be portrayed on screen. I like him the way he is in 1978. I kind of like the whole, you know, immortal force. Like, this is the pure essence of evil, not this man that has all these connections to all these different characters and everything like that, and setting up all this lore and everything. No, stop. Not my hashtag not my Michael Myers. Again, talking about the characters that really didn't feel like the characters. The biggest character that I felt was changed so differently and so weirdly and made the most fucking stupidest decisions was Allison, the son of Karen. The son? Karen's daughter, Laurie's granddaughter, Allison, was really stupid in this movie and really didn't make sense. Whereas there's a dissonance, I feel, with this and like the release schedule and the timeline of these movies, because yes, Halloween 2018 came out in 2018. It was probably filmed in 2017, 2016, and then came out in 2018. And then when these next two movies were announced to be filmed back to back, and then you have Kills, and then you have Ends, where characters don't really feel like they were in Kills, expect Laurie, for example, but Laurie's even fucking stupider, in my opinion, in this movie. Allison just feels so different. And that is the part that I don't really get, that I'm like kind of, you know, struggling with, is of how the characters felt much different, and then also the choice that was made to bring in new characters that really didn't really work out for me, and as I really couldn't get on that level. I didn't like ends. They're gonna make more. It's inevitable. I'm just gonna keep my 1978 film right here. No one touch it. No one touch it. Yeah, didn't like it. Not a recommendation for me. I then checked out a better horror film, in my opinion, or a better thriller. What do you call this? Bloodshed movie. Bloodbath of a film. Check out Bedeviled. Check out Bedeviled from 2010. This is about a woman who lives on a deserted island with her husband, his brother, and a bunch of villagers. And pretty much what takes place throughout the film is that she is mistreated, treated poorly, abused. And when I talk about abuse, I'm talking about literally everything under the sun when that word is brought up. Not just physical abuse, but like sexual abuse and stuff like that. So I'm not going to be talking about that more in depth, just in case that upsets some viewers. But yes, do be aware that these are the things that happen in this film and happen to this protagonist. And then pretty much what happens is about an hour in or after some time, she finally has enough of it all and she snaps and she decides to take control. And a lot of killing and a lot of blood and a lot of pure violence and just a damn well lot of catharsis. And I'll talk about catharsis in a little bit, but I first want to talk about how this film is kind of structured, because this film is kind of structured in a non-conventional way. And that's what I really liked about it, because yes, you do follow this protagonist, this woman in this island, and all the shit that she goes through, and then seeing all that payoff during the end. When she does finally have her transformation, or I guess her something in her changes, the opening 20 minutes, we actually follow a friend of hers. Because the plot of this movie is that this friend actually has had enough of the city life and everything and had enough of her job. Goes to this deserted island to meet an old friend of hers who is the protagonist of this film. And that's where most of the story is. But the first 20 minutes follows the friend, which I thought was interesting, an interesting way of going about things, but also a really cool way of building character with a character that, yes, it sounds like this is how the movie starts. The friend shows up to the island, and then we actually meet our, and we kind of have like two protagonists going on, but I guess we are getting a little bit of that when we have the opening 20 minutes taking place following the friend or following a different character, and then shifting narrative to what happens to this woman on this island. And I thought it was I thought the opening 20 minutes was a great way of building character in that way. You understand why she does this character in particular does certain things in the rest of the film, and you understand the relationship that she has with our protagonist when we finally meet her on the deserted island. You get the relationship through flashbacks, but also through how she behaves and how she is written as a character. So that is the part of the film that I really liked, that we got to spend time with this character before we met our actual character that we follow throughout this movie. And our actual character as well, and how, primary protagonist in this movie as well. There's a lot of shit, because she goes through a lot of stuff through this movie, and a lot of harrowing things throughout this movie. You are really given, there's a lot of sympathy that you feel for this character, because you spend a long time with her, and this movie doesn't go for like 3 hours or anything, but it's actually quite decently paced in my opinion for a 2-hour film. But you do spend a lot of time, a lot of sequences are just spent with our character here, and what she goes through and how she feels about certain things. And when that moment in the film happens later on where it all goes tits up, I guess, you understand. And you, not saying that like, yes, I would do the same thing, but you just get it. You understand. You're like, there's a sense of like triumph almost when you're just like, yes, just fucking get it. It reminded me of films such as I Saw the Devil, directed by Kim Ji-woon, and Sympathy for Lady Vengeance, directed by Park Chan-wook. in those ways, and it's kind of structured in that way as well. There's a lot of time spent with characters. There's a lot of build up and suspense and tension, and then you finally get that release for that bridging for the second act to the third act. You just are so on board with it. I felt the same way with I Saw the Devil, when yes, that protagonist, that man in that movie does some fucked up things, but you are just kind of. You're like kind of leaning on the fence, but you're kind of like, oh, you're kind of fucked. You're like, holy shit, you've turned, but I get why you've turned, and I understand, and I have the sympathy, I have the empathy here to really be on your side. And I felt that again with our protagonist here in this film, because even after the film, what I do like mostly about the film is, yes, it is about this plot about this woman who all these things happen to her, and then she finally snaps and has that change. But it is spent a lot of time as well with her friend as well, because without spoiling anything, when the plot of the film kind of wraps up, there's a little bit more to be discussed and to be looked at and to be kind of paid off and wrapped up. So really, there isn't wrap up when it does wrap up, because there's even more to wrap up with our characters. That is what I liked mostly about this film. I did on purpose bring up those two films, I Saw the Devil and Sympathy for Lady Vengeance, because that is how I describe this to most people. This movie is Sympathy for Lady Vengeance meets I Saw the Devil, in my opinion. And that is the best way I can describe it to people that are wanting to watch a movie like this. That if you do enjoy those films, you will enjoy this one. Really enjoy it. If you can't tell, I really enjoyed Bedeviled. I really, really, really loved it. And if you do like Sympathy for Lady of Vengeance or I Saw the Devil, please give this one a watch. If you haven't seen those films, please give those a watch, because those are excellent films as well. If you don't like any of the themes inside any of those movies, you can't handle the violence, you're a bit squeamish, you don't like the horror, don't watch them. Make your own mind up. And, I'm not saying that I'll be watching this anytime soon, but, we're really watching this sooner rather than later. Then I checked out Pearl. This is the follow-up to X that came out in April, Ty West's supposed trilogy. Hey, what's going on? Editor's note here. I consider the next section, the Pearl review, to have minor spoilers for X. So if you don't want any spoilers for X, just step to this time frame. And that's the Barbarian review. Savior. Also, this time written by Mia Goth, the star herself. Mia Goth. As you guys know, I was a big fan of X when it came out in April. I really enjoyed that movie. One of my favorite movies of the year. And I'm happy to say that I feel the same about this movie as well, Pearl. And what I like most about this movie is how different it is from X. Or instead of you get some great character moments in X, but it's a slasher film because there's just build up, a kill, and then tension, release, all that stuff. How slashers work, really. But what I liked most about X is, yes, there is a lot of character actually given to these people, and you do feel for them when they do get eventually knocked off. But Pearl is so much different in a way that this is a character study. I would say this is a psychological horror, and it doesn't also have, whereas X is shot 4:3 and given in that 70s aesthetic with film grain and everything like that. Pearl is shot in a 2:3.9 widescreen aspect ratio, cinemascope, Technicolor. So in that way, it is also very different to X, and it is about the character of Pearl from X and her upbringing, how she pretty much turns into the character that we see in X, and I fucking loved it. What I liked mostly about it is like how much it does stick to this 60s aesthetic. I know that Ty West was bringing up films like Wizard of Oz that were influencing this movie. And yes, I do feel that with this movie. Again, sticking to that aesthetic so hard. And I just love commitment like that when you have this kind of like outline, this way the film wants to go. And then you want to stick to it. Sorry, I'm losing my voice because I actually already recorded this whole video. And it went for a long time. And I didn't have the microphone on. So we are recording this again. And we'll see how this one's going to go. The microphone is on. I checked this time. So we'll see how this one's going to go. I liked one of the parts I did really like, the little touches that I liked, was in the beginning of the film when there was that freeze frame kind of shot. And then the title card and everything. I'm not going to say exactly what happens in that scene. But I liked what happened in that scene. And I thought it was a great way to open this movie and to try and get you into the mood of this film and be like, okay, this is the type of film that we're going to be watching right now. But as I liked with X, the best part about Pearl is Mia Goth, is her performance. Yes, it's High West filmmaking and all the people that he's worked with and collaborated with to bring this together, but it's Mia Goth, man. She is the glue that is going to hold this trilogy together. Her portrayal of Maxine, her portrayal of Pearl in this movie. And I'm really looking forward to how this is all going to be strung together with the release of Maxine, I think next year, and that one having an 80s aesthetic. So, and what I like about this trilogy is it's a whole trilogy of period pieces, 70s, 60s, 60s/50s, and 80s with Maxine, and supposedly 2023. With the release of Pearl coming so sooner after X, I think it would be 2023. I imagine Ty West would snap right onto that. Yeah, Mia Goth. She is a phenomenal and very talented actor. I liked her ever since I watched her in Cure for Wellness. I think that was the first time I watched her, was Cure for Wellness, and loved her in every single project she's been in since. Loved her in X. I love her even more in Pearl. She has this amazing monologue that happens towards the end of the film. And again, it's not like... And look, it's not my favorite monologue like this of this year. That belongs to Rebecca Hall in Resurrection. Love that monologue and I love the way that monologue affected me. But it's one of those monologues where the camera will stay on the actor and will just let them do their shit and let them show you why they're so talented and why they can pull this off and... get to those heights. And Mia Goth, when she does this monologue, she is just stunning, absolutely stunning. And yes, she's very over top as Pearl as well, but she has these moments where you just catch her in those like subtle understated moments. Wow, I love when an actor sinks into a character like this. So I highly recommend Pearl, because if Maxine pays off, we could have an excellent modern horror trilogy. And wouldn't that be so cool? And each film being different from the last. Not just being sequel taking place in the same time, but each film being different from the last. And we could even get a different genre with Maxine. Whereas, like I said, X is a horror slasher. This is more of a psychological horror character study. Interesting to see what Maxine will be. So if you can't tell, again, I recommend Pearl. I loved it. Watch Pearl, watch X. And we can all watch Maxine when that comes out in 2023. I'm very, very keen for that. Anyway, that's just me. Let's talk about Barbarian. Hi, me again. Before I talked about Barbarian, I went on this like huge rant tangent about the state of modern cinema. And it was really long and super unnecessary. So I'm going to cut that out and put that as a separate video. But yeah, just so you know, this is where it leaves off. Barbarian. This is written and directed by Zach Cregger. It stars Georgina Campbell, Bill Skarsgård, and Justin Long, which is pretty cool. Georgina Campbell, I saw her last in Hang the DJ episode of Black Mirror with Joe Cole, and I remember really liking her, really taking a shine to her, and just thinking like, I wonder what else she's going to do next. I wonder because she is actually a really, really good actor, and again, she pulls it off here as well. Bill Skarsgård as well is excellent in the film. This is a movie about a woman named Tess who shows up to this Airbnb in Detroit and finds out that her Airbnb has already been occupied, has already been booked by someone else, Bill Skarsgård's character, Keith. And they've got to work out what to do, because I do not want to spoil anything that happens in this movie, because this movie takes some twists and there is layer upon layer of just an unraveling that is happening throughout this movie. And I enjoyed every fucking second of it. It was awesome. Such a good movie. The performances, like I said, are great, but the screenplay is really good. The filmmaking by Zach Cregger, I thought, was really, really fucking impressive. I love how the movie just sets you up. Fuck, this could be another tangent. But I like when you're sitting down for a film and the opening scene really just kind of like, the opening really just sets you up of just like, okay, you're in this now. You're in this. We're setting up like a movie, like experience for you to have now. Like, you are in this. And I love how the film does that with the arriving of Tess to the Airbnb, and just how everything plays out during that entire sequence, how the credits play out, how the title card plays out. I loved everything about it. I loved everything about it. Again, talking about the performances, Georgina Campbell, really good as Tess. She adds this extra layer to Tess that I think Georgina does really well in how Tess would think and all of that, because you look at Tess on the page, and yes, Tess has a lot of agency as a character, and a lot of smart thinking. It's very rare that we see a lot of smart thinking protagonists in a horror film. Usually we get a lot of inept ones, especially in slashers and little films like this, but she has a lot of agency in the beginning, which I didn't understand when she does start to make a lot of interesting decisions, and yes, she's still kind of proactive in the way that she thinks, but there are also choices that she's like, that you're kind of just like, well, don't do that, don't go down there, don't open that door, but we've got to have a horror film, so you're gonna have to get that. So I feel like I wasn't clear enough in this section here about Tess. What I just meant to say was, like, she does have a lot of agency as a character on the page, and then she kind of loses that when you get into like the second half of the film, when everything is all revealed, and she makes a lot of decisions that a lot of Annette's protagonists would make. I really liked how she would lock doors. She had to double check his booking notification. She asked for that. She refuses the wine. And I thought that Georgina really was attuned to her character. That's what I'm trying to say, I think, here. But then, yeah, in the second half of the film, it all kind of is just like lost, and she does make a lot of common decisions that these protagonists do make. So hopefully that does clear it up a bit. So I thought she was really good, and I really like Bill Skarsgård. I always like Bill Skarsgård. I think he plays these characters. He's kind of like these dual kind of personalities, like where Keith comes across as like someone that you can trust because of the way he is played by Bill Skarsgård. He's a very charming guy. He comes across very charming. But the way, again, like Skarsgård plays him, the way Skarsgård acts, is like this man could betray you at any second. He could snap. He could have this transformation, this change that you could be like, oh no, but also, I kind of understand. I kind of get it. So I always like that extra layer that he brings to these characters, and I liked Keith in this movie. But who I really liked, and who I was so surprised by, was Justin Long's character in this movie, because he plays a interesting character that has a lot to say about, and a lot of connection with the dramatic question and the themes in this film. And I'm not going to spoil what they are, because I didn't expect anything other than like what this movie is. Like, people are saying like, this movie's a roller coaster, it's crazy, fuck, crazy horror film. But the message that this movie has and everything underneath is what makes this even more special, as not just being a very effective and scary horror film, but also has a lot to say, and a lot of things that make audiences, like I talked about before, think and have thoughtful discussions about. I liked all that stuff. I liked all of that about Barbarian. It has some great moments. Has an interesting monster as well. I am getting tired of that kind of monster, but I won't spoil what it is. I am getting tired of it, but I still liked how it played into the film, and how it all pays off, I guess, towards the end. Really fucking good movie. Really fucking good horror movie, and it really does join the list of the best horror films of the year. Dare I say, one of the best films of the year in general. I enjoyed Barbarian. Wherever you can find it, do check it out, and turn all the lights off and have a spooky time, because it's a roller coaster, this one. And I hope you enjoy it. And then I finished the month by watching Wendell and Wild on Halloween. I decided to watch this on Halloween, and I knew this was coming out because it's directed by Henry Selick, written by Henry Selick as well, who gave us Coraline, Night Before Christmas. He didn't do the screenplay or the writing of Night Before Christmas, but he is the director of Night Before Christmas. But mostly Coraline, the adaptation of Neil Gaiman's book. This also is stop motion, but this is also co-written by Jordan Peele as well. And Keegan-Michael Key and Jordan Peele are actually in the film as well as two characters. And this is about a girl who has a traumatic experience as a child, and when she grows up, she makes this decision to summon these two devils, her devils, that want to wreak havoc and cause havoc and have their own motivations and intentions in mind. And I really enjoyed this movie. I always enjoy what Henry Selick does and what he brings to the animation genre, because he makes films kind of like the best Pixar films that, yes, kids can watch, kids can digest, kids can enjoy, they can get so much out of them with the surface level of these characters and the plot of the film and what happens. But there's this extra subtextual layer that Henry Selick puts into his movies where adults can really connect to the themes and the kind of the darkness of them as well. I'm really especially talking about Coraline, but Wendell Wild has a lot of things to say about childhood trauma and familiar experiences that I connected with, that I really got a lot out of. And not only did I like the film that was on top, but underneath I was like, there's a lot to say here about, your family and prejudices and I guess class systems, which I thought was really good. So I really enjoyed my time with Wendell Wild. The voice acting's great. Stop motion's incredible. Good score as well, and it's on Netflix, so check it out. Give it the views it needs. Give it the views it deserves, because Henry Selick is still got it. Jordan Peele never didn't have it. So it was really cool to see them come together and make something really cool with Wendell Wild. All right, let's talk about some TV we've got here. Started off with 101 scary movie moments of all time. This is a series that premiered on Shudder over October. There are 6 episodes. They each go for 45 minutes, I believe. And it's just counting down scary movie moments in cinema. And you get a lot of talks and interpretations and discussions from directors, writers, producers, actors, journalists, and pretty much everyone involved. So helicopters coming over. That's what they do. Sometimes they just choose the right time to do these things. And there's a lot of insight from the people involved in these horror films and horror films from today. You get big names too. It's not just people that come off of the street. You have Edgar Wright, you have Mike Flanagan, Katie Siegel, Keith David, Tony Todd, Joe Dante, Tom Holland. I think is in this. The director, not the director of Child's Play, not the Spider-Man. And it was interesting to see what they thought was scary and what scares them the most. And what I thought was really cool, which I didn't actually notice until the series was over, which I was finished with it, is if you were on Twitter, Shudder would be putting out these images like this thing next to me of a checklist after each episode. If you had seen it, if you need to see it because of the moment that you want to see or everything surrounding it or how they talk about the film, or if you're too scared to see it, which I thought was interesting, a third checkbox. And I found myself finding those images and kind of checking everything off and just saying, okay, so I might watch this one because of this, or might stay away from this one because fuck that. Sinister was the one movie that I was just like, I'm never watching that film again, because that has just another layer to that. And then you have other really scary stuff like 96 here, Pulse, that I watched last year that really scared me, and I thought was one of the scariest movies I've ever seen, and because of the themes attached to it as well and the subtext. So I was like, this could be like, this could definitely be higher. As you see, it's 96 there, but I definitely think it should have been higher. And look, a lot of the movies and moments on this thing is subjective. I liked the selection, I liked the moments, and I especially liked what everyone had to say about them. And it was really interesting, like I said, to hear experiences that they've had, and how they can relate to a lot of the moments that happen in these movies. So yeah, it's really cool series that I watched over October. And like I said, 6 episodes, 45 minutes each. It's pretty easy to knock out. If you're a horror fan, big recommendation for this one. If you're not even a horror fan, this could be a way to gel yourself into the horror genre and maybe like see these moments and be like, oh, well, that wasn't like as scary as I thought that was going to be. That looks like an interesting film that I do want to check out. So it's on Shudder. Please watch it. It's really cool. And then the Big Daddy, House of the Dragon, on HBO. This was the big thing everyone was talking about in August, and then it finally wrapped up in early October. My God, when I talk about this is a series that I had little to no excitement for because of, especially when it was announced, because of like how Game of Thrones ended and how really poorly that was handled and executed. After watching Better Call Saul, for example, I had a lot more faith and a lot more kind of there was a lot more kind of leeway I was giving it, because I was like, okay, well, that spin-off is just as good as the fucking original thing, in my opinion. Let's see what they can do with House of the Dragon. David Benioff and D.B. Weiss, I know they're not attached to this. It's actually created by Ryan Condal, helped and it has a lot of people on from like the Game of Thrones, really good Game of Thrones stuff. Fucking be real. Like the really good Game of Thrones stuff, earlier seasons, written by, Ryan Condal was one of the better writers, I think, on the show. Miguel Sapochnik, like, directed some of the best episodes of the entire show. And most importantly, George R.R. Martin is more closely attached to this series. So there's not going to be this, things are changed in this series, but there's not going to be this huge deviation of like, where the fuck is this going? Like, what the fuck? I watched the first episode, really, really enjoyed it. And then I watched the entire season, and I've got to say, one of the best shows the entire year. It kind of had that Dune thing where I watched Dune and wanted to read the book. Man, I don't really want to go back and read Game of Thrones or actually read those books now. And I know that people say, yes, you should read Game of Thrones because there's a lot more to them. But I want to go and read Fire and Blood now because of watching this show and getting to know these characters, and it'd be so good to know these characters more, even though people, especially like Alt Shift X on YouTube, has said that this is just kind of like a loose retelling. Fire and Blood is kind of like a loose retelling of the histories between these old Valyrian families of Targaryens and Valerians and Hightowers. So, nevertheless, I still want to read Fire and Blood. I really want to read the book now because I want to get more out of these characters. Because that is the best part about this show, is these characters, the performances from these actors. I love the actors that portrayed Alicent and Rhaenyra when they were kids, when they were younger. Emily Carey, Millie Alcott. Fuck yes. Like, excellent. And I almost, like, when they went away, I almost was like, oh, like I want more from Emily Carey and Millie Alcott. And then you get fucking Olivia Cook and Emma Darcy, and then you're like, shit, we got everyone. It's a whole buffet, because Olivia Cook and Emma Darcy just bring another layer to these characters of Alicent and Rhaenyra that is even more interesting as they grow up and as their relationships change throughout the show. Matt Smith, Paddy Considine, Rhys fucking Ifans as Otto Hightower, Stephen Toussaint, I forget how, apologies if I can't say that last name correctly, really, really, really good as one of my favorite characters as the sea snake, Corbin? Again, sorry, I'm not getting these names right. Oh, wow. It really took me back to the earlier seasons of Game of Thrones, like the intrigue and all the small council meetings and everything, and what the characters had to say to each other from behind closed doors, what they weren't telling other characters, what they're telling these certain characters. Fucking juicy shit. And I just ate it all up. And I loved this season of House of the Dragon. I cannot wait for more. We've got to wait for like 2 years, I believe, for the next season. Or 3 years, I'm not too sure. It's a long time for the next season. And good. Take your time with it. Make something as effective as this first season, as great as this first season was, because my God, they just knocked it out of the park. It was fucking phenomenal. Even the CGI looked pretty good too. Like, I thought the dragon flying and the dragon fights and everything like that, good stuff. Excellent stuff. But the best part is the characters. The best part of this show is the characters. And I'm sorry to these people on IMDb, especially on IMDb, these fucking idiots on IMDb that look. I don't have any respect for you if you're going into a show where it's just like, oh, all I want is the battle sequences and all that stuff like that, and all I want is like fights and blood. And yes, you're going to get that. You're going to get fights and violence and what Game of Thrones is. But then you can't really fucking come away from an episode and be like, well, that didn't have any action in it. What the fuck? That was a stupid episode because it didn't have any action in it. No, I'm sorry they didn't cater to what you wanted, but because the fights, yeah, they are fun, but I don't know. It's just not the best part of these shows. It's the characters and the writing and how they interact with each other, man. It's not the fucking battle sequences and all that stuff. And I just really can't get on the level of people, especially online, who just say, like, they say an episode's bad because it didn't have a battle in it, or an episode's bad because it didn't have any fucking something super entertaining or something like that. Like, just fuck off. Like, you sound stupid. You sound dumb when you're saying that objectively an episode is bad because it didn't have a fight in it or a battle in it or something like that. It's going to be different for you, man. And this is the show that is more so about the characters and how they move throughout the plot and throughout the narrative. And that is the more interesting parts. So, like, shut up. Like, that is a stupid fucking thing to say. So just shut up and just, if you don't like it, don't fucking watch it. Anyway, House of the Dragon. Good. Really good. Looking forward to see what they do next. Again, give it all the time it needs. Give it all the time it needs. If you want to deliver such a great thing as the first season, give it all the time it needs. I'm very much going to love it. And that's going to do it, guys. Thank you so much for watching this October segment. My voice is nearly dead, so I'm going to stop recording right now. Please go and listen to the 100th episode of the podcast and look forward to 101 when that comes out. We'll be talking about Blonde on that one. So if you want to hear more of my deeper thoughts on that movie, boy, do I have some more thoughts on that movie. And look forward to what I have seen in November. Will I see more than 2 movies? Well, I guess we'll find out when I finally release that video in December. Again, guys, thanks for watching. Have a great week. Stay safe, and I'll see you in the next one.